Awesome.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Star Changers, and welcome my guest today, Al Gleason. Thank you, Al, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Kathy.
So, you are very welcome. I am excited to get to know you a little bit better and to see what your story is about and the things that you want to help other people with. Can you tell our audience a little bit about you?
Yes, my name is Al Gleason. I go by the Curator of Nonsense. And I've always had a passion from a young age, teaching and training and just helping people uh, be the best version of themselves, I guess is how I would say it now. And so that's what I do. I teach, um, I've taught in universities, I do executive coaching and training. I do motivational speaking. So everything in that realm, so to speak, is what I do. Um, I am married. I actually have 7 kids, and love being a father, and love being a husband. And so that's a big part of my life now. And thrill seeker at heart, love to have fun. I know that's something we have in common. We've talked
Yes.
about in previous conversations. But I am a roller coaster enthusiast, so I've traveled the country just to ride roller coasters, believe it or not.
That is awesome.
so yeah, yeah, but I'm passionate about helping people be the best version of themselves. I grew up. My mom was a very fearful person, and she knew it was a bad thing, but by default, she put a lot of that stuff in me because that's who she was. And so I spent years overcoming fear myself and dealing with the chains of the bondages that a fearful type life will keep you in. And so I was able to break free, understood there's some principles and things you can do to get rid of fear or to overcome fear whenever it comes your way. And so that's a big part of what I like to do is give information. A good friend of mine will say information to inspiration. And so that's a little bit about me and what I like to do.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So you said something about breaking free. What was it that led you to that point that you needed and you know that you wanted to break free?
Well, so one of the big fears I had, and I just told you I was a roller coaster enthusiast,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
But I was afraid of heights. Now I know the two don't
me
don't
too.
really go together, right? Shouldn't be. But that was one thing that I wanted to get over. We would go on vacation if it was a big ride. The anticipation of getting up there and having to walk up the steps. That was super scary for me. And then going in tall buildings was a challenge. And so that was one of the things that I wanted to deal with and overcome. I knew that I just didn't like it. I like this adventure stuff, and this is preventing me from doing the things that I like to do. And so that's really what opened the door for me. And it's funny, I recognize that I had that fear, for instance, but in other areas, I had no fear at all. I grew up in an urban neighborhood, so I could walk down the alley in a, shady area and be fine. But when it came to going up high, man, that was the scariest thing in the world. And so anyway, I did not want to have that limitation on my life. And when I started digging into it, I recognized that it was in many other areas as well. And so in my late teens through early 20s, I started this journey to overcome fear and learning how to recognize it in my life. And I would say around 22 for sure. At that point, I felt like I had a good handle on it. But then I started to recognize that, man, this is not just you. A lot of people deal with this. So as I was able to see it in my life and deal with it, I was able to recognize it in others. And so that's kind of what started that journey.
Oh, that's awesome, though, that you were so young, because a lot of us don't start this journey until they're in their 40s.
Right.
Yeah.
I have to give credit to God. I don't really know why it bothered me like it did, and or why I decided that I had to get rid of it. But I did. So it was definitely awesome to do it at a young age versus, like you said, later on in life.
Oh, yeah, that's way cool. As far as, have you ever actually physically worked for anybody else, or have you always been an entrepreneur?
I've been back and forth. So I've spent probably about 15 years in corporate overall. But I typically, started off there, I did the traditional path, went and got my degree, so that I can get a good job,
Yeah.
and did the good job thing for a while, and got into sales and realized I could make a lot of money, in that part of corporate, and then decided to do it on my own and did that for a while. And then the crash happened, and I jumped back into corporate. But then I kind of had one foot in, one foot out, and then most recently I've been on my own again.
Oh, nice. Awesome. What is your favorite roller coaster and where is it?
Hmm. My favorite roller coaster. There's a lot that I really, really like, but I think I would have to say my favorite is the Beast. That's in King's Dominion in Cincinnati, Ohio, just outside of Cincinnati.
And why is it your favorite?
Hmm. It is a very long roller coaster. It has tunnels. It has, great hill drops. It really has a nice mix of all the things that make a roller coaster fun. And so it was one of the first roller coasters that I rode that was away from St. Louis, where I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. So I would ride those rides there all the time. But this one was one of the first trips that I made specifically to go ride this ride, and it turned out to still be one of the best roller coasters out there, in my opinion.
Oh, awesome. That is cool. I'll have to check it out because, as you know, I call it a fun seeker, but it
Yes,
is kind of a thrill seeker as well.
yes.
Because I do go, and that's why I went skydiving, is because I'm afraid of heights. And I'm afraid of sharks as well, so I decided to swim with the
I had
sharks.
to go do that, huh?
Yeah.
So with that being said, so that was a fear of yours. You went and stared it in the face, right, and did something that most people who are afraid of heights would never do. And what was the result of that for you?
I absolutely loved it. So
Mhm.
now I was going to go 3 times. I've gone twice, and then I tore my ACL on the third time, so they wouldn't let me jump.
Okay.
And because I couldn't land. So go
Kind of
figure.
important. That's kind of
Yeah.
important.
But yeah, but I absolutely loved it. And it actually, I believe it broke some barriers for me.
Yes. That's what I was curious. Like, do you notice the fear not as strong, or has it gone away, or what has that part been like for you?
It's not necessarily as strong as far as the fear of heights,
Yeah.
unless I'm hiking and there's the mountainside that I look down into the gully and it's deep,
Yeah.
and that scares me. But I mean, I don't have as bad of anxiety as I did, but it's still there.
Still there. Well, my experience is it is a work in progress, and it's something that it doesn't, I mean, you can get rid of it at one point in your life, but as time passes, another area of fear will pop up, or
Mhm.
even the same area will try to come again. I view fear as an enemy, okay? And it's like you can defeat it, but it'll regroup and come back at you, so you have to be vigilant and stay on top of it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And if you don't, and I totally believe that you have to have a process, a daily meditation process and goal writing. And because I've noticed for myself, if I don't do my gratitude and my daily meditation, I go in a spiral. And
Mhm.
I think that everybody has to, as Trent Shelton says, protect your peace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, if you think about you doing those things, that is you intentionally pouring good stuff in, positive, peaceful information. And in the world we live in today, fear mongering it's a big deal. People
Yeah.
make millions of dollars scaring people. And so that's all we're inundated with. If you turn on the news, there's no good news on the news. Maybe there's a cat story, but that does nothing for you. And but you can hear plenty of "be afraid to do this, don't go there," the world is ending
Yeah.
type information. And if that's all you're getting, it will affect your mindset and how you view things, and overall your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I learned to turn off the news years ago,
Yes.
and I figure if it's important enough, somebody will tell me.
I I agree. I agree. Somebody will tell you. Sometimes I'll look at the the major news stories that come across the phone.
Yeah.
With that, I like it that way because you can control how much is coming in. You don't have to watch the whole news story to get the bits and pieces of information that you want. And then even then, it's limited. I won't look at the news first thing in the morning or right before I go to bed. And I do limit. I'm definitely on the headlines, and then I typically move on.
Yeah. See, and I think that's totally important. It's important
Mm,
for your mind and peace and your heart.
absolutely.
We met on a different podcast, and
Hmm.
then you politely offered to be on mine, so I appreciate that. What got you into Les Brown's Power Voice course?
Les Brown has been a motivation to me for, I would say, at least the last 20 years or so. He, I mean, I've heard him speak live several times, and I just love the way he commanded the stage and the way he could tell a story. And I always felt like it was something that I should be doing. I was already in the teaching space whenever I had opportunities to, but just had not taken the time to, as he says, discover my voice and really step out there and do it. So he'd been an inspiration and motivation for years. And when I saw this opportunity with the Power Voice, I knew I had to take it.
Awesome. Awesome. And so now with doing the Power Voice, I don't know if that launched you into your essentials of communication or if you did it prior, but can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that was something I was doing prior. I would say for the last almost 2 years now, I've been working on that with colleagues of mine and launched that early this year. We were doing it live, and we launched a video, digital version of it, I guess I would say. So that's something that had been in the works. But I guess the thing that really has changed for me based on going through that mentoring with Les Brown is refining the way that I tell stories, having a control over my voice, being sensitive to the audience in a more intentional way so that I can give them what they need versus having a story or preset information that I want to deliver.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I've actually and I don't recall if we chatted about this on the last podcast that we were both part of.
Hmm.
I personally got into Les's course because I am very shy by nature.
Okay.
And so I was trying to find my voice. And it's interesting to me what you do as far as because you do the essentials of communication. And I think you're doing similar things that Les is doing as far as teaching people how to communicate effectively and not to be
Yeah.
scared and talk and talk basically effectively as well. And so I think that's awesome what you're doing. And I'm sure that there's a reason that you came into my path. I
All right.
always believe that.
No, I agree 100%. I think I like to tell people this when it comes to communication. Um, so I'll tell you a little story about it. I
Okay.
coached Little League football, coaching my son's team. And the first day of practice, I tell the kids to run a couple laps around the field, right? So we can start our warm up, get the blood flowing, then we'll stretch. I had two kids this particular year that had never played any organized sports before. They took off running with their arms down to their side. Okay. So if you can imagine, natural running motion, you move your
Yeah.
arms. They're running like this. Running with your arms down is not the most effective
No,
way to run, right?
no.
And I could not understand why these kids would run with their arms down. It's almost like you have to force yourself, to keep your arms. A natural motion, your arms want to move, but they were running with their arms down to the side. And so when it comes to communication, is really similar to that. People know how to talk, and so they feel like they are good communicators, or that they know how to communicate. But that is so far from the truth. The reality is communication is something that we're taught very little about, and it's much more than most people realize. So we know about verbal and nonverbal communication, but the details of it, we don't really know much about. Most communication is nonverbal. Your smile communicates something. Your micro facial expressions communicate something. Your tone communicates something. The pace in which you talk communicates something. Whether you use filler words or what we call power words, all of those make a difference. And that's before anything verbally that you said was even received. And so we help people understand those types of things so that they can be much more effective. We help people run with their arms, basically.
That's a great way to put it. A great way. I hope that those boys learned how to run.
They did. They did. Address that right away, actually. Run another lap, use your arms this time. So, do that again.
That's awesome. I've been in organized sports for years. So
Mhm.
it's always interesting though when you get your kids in at the very beginning to see exactly that. Kids that have played sports before or haven't played sports and just that physical and mental ability for what you see them do.
Yes. Something, one of the reasons why I love sports, coming back to what I do now, is the confidence piece of it. When you play team sports, you learn and gain confidence based on the practice that you have, the things that you learn and that you're able to use. And so all those same lessons really apply to life. But as you mentioned, if there's a kid who comes out who's played before, they have a different level of confidence.
Yeah.
They're excited about the season. There's not the anxiety that a kid who has never played before has because they don't know what to do. And so I found that the same lessons transfer from sports to business to whatever area that you're trying to work in life.
As far as you said that you do coaching for executives or personal, or I don't remember the third one that you said, but out of those people that you actually coach,
Mhm.
who is your favorite type of person to coach?
Mm. I would say my favorite type of person is one that is open to learn. It is amazing to me how many people, I'll say it like this: people have a sense of pride about what they know. And the reality is, no matter how much you know, it's very little in the overall scheme of all knowledge that exists, right? You
Sure.
can step in any room and there'll be people in that room that know something that you don't.
Yep.
So to be closed and have this sense of pride about what you know really is it's something that none of us should have because all that you know is still a very little, right? And so when I deal with executives, people who have achieved certain levels of success, they think they know. Well, you do know what you know, but you don't know what you don't know. And there's a reason why people get stuck and can't move forward, experience frustration, and most times it's tied to things that they don't know. And so I prefer to work with somebody who is open to receive so that I can ask them the questions that they should be asking themselves to basically see their blind spots and help them be the hero and save the day in their journey.
That sounds fair. Fair. I mean, I think everybody should be open, but I know a lot of us are not, and so it's hard. It's hard to be a personal development coach, in sometimes, but it only if the people don't want to listen. Kind of like your
Right.
kids. Kind of like
Yeah.
your kids.
Right. Well,
But
I have learned over the years that if people aren't open, I think Les Brown always says this. He said, "Don't speak when your voice won't be heard or where your voice can't be
yeah,
heard." And so that was a hard lesson for me because my mindset was, "Hey, I know I can help, but not everybody wants your help. Not everybody can hear what you have to say." And so, as long as I have somebody who can hear my voice, then we have a great time and we see successful things manifest in their life.
awesome. So, as far as your course goes, is it for both female and male?
Yes, yes, that's correct. What we talk about in that course is verbal and nonverbal communication and how that ties to confidence. And I know it's an interesting mix, maybe not one that's more uncommon, but we found through research that your level of communication, your communication skill level is tied to your confidence. I know on the surface it doesn't seem like the two necessarily go together, but they absolutely do. There's no separating them. So the better communicator you are, the higher your level of confidence will be, and vice versa. And so that's why we pair them together. So we go through, there's, 9 different types of nonverbal communication. We talk about verbal communication. Again, I mentioned the power words. There's such thing called power talking, power walking. We talk about your dress. That's something that people feel like is old school and they don't have to do. But how you dress affects you first. It also impacts how other people see you, but it affects your confidence first. And so we talk about that in the course as well. And so it's really a well-rounded approach to help people understand the different types of communication, the different nuances of it, I will say, and then how to effectively use them. And it's really simple things, but most of the time it's just something that we've never been presented with or things that we aren't aware of.
This sounds very familiar to the Bob Proctor course that I'm doing with John.
Oh, okay.
Rico. I highly encourage you to be part of it.
Yes. I'm gonna get on that. I know we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah. As far as, give us 1 or 2 power words that you tell people to use.
One simple one. When people or I said power word, but I'll give you a phrase. Sometimes when people are asked a question about doing something, their response will be, I'll try, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's low power. It's non-committal, which is why people say it most of the time. So they're not on the hook if they don't do it, right?
Yep.
Well, a power word is, or a power phrase is, I will do it. Just saying I will. That simple adjustment, you could say I will try and have every intention to get it done, but it's a low power word. It leaves the door open for excuses. It actually is something that you end up battling against, because when you face opposition, if you said I'll try, now you have a built-in excuse not to do it. Well, I didn't say I would, I said I would try, right? So all those little games that we play to try to essentially manipulate our situation, right? But just commit to it. I will do it. It's power. There's no question about it. You are communicating effectively that you will get it done. And then you also put yourself on the hook to make sure you follow through.
That is absolutely true. One of the things that I wouldn't let my kids say when they were younger is I can't.
Yes.
And my son was notorious for saying I can't. I don't know really why it was so much him versus my daughter, but he would say I can't. So I would make him do push-ups every time he said it.
Yes. That's something that's big in this household too. I can't will get you 15 push-ups.
See, right there with you.
Yes.
As far as if people want to actually get a hold of you to be part of your course, how would they do that?
So you could go to my website, which is curatorofnonsense.com. And there you can find all the information. You can click on the links to get to courses, things like that.
Okay. That leads me to my question.
Yes.
How did you get that name?
How did I get that name? All right. So I like plays on, the play on words, right? Mm-hmm. My experience has been the principles of success typically are based on things that are considered nonsense. People don't think it's required or that it makes sense to do, or it's things that aren't easily perceived by the senses, right? So just a simple example, everywhere you go, every successful person talks about how they give to be successful, right? You got to plant seeds, right? The Bible talks about it, right? But on the surface, that doesn't make sense. How can I get more if I'm giving away? But again, everywhere you look, if you look at the most wealthy people, they are typically big philanthropists. Well, they understand the principle. It's not because they just don't have anything to do with their money, right? And so, so just a simple example, most of the principles of success are things that people don't think make sense, or they're not easily perceived by the senses. So I came up with that name, Curator of Nonsense, because of that. And I've spent years collecting that knowledge, right? Personal development, studying. I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but I'm actually working on my doctorate in performance psychology. And so I'm getting that piece of it as well, knowing how the brain actually works as it relates to performance and being successful. And so bringing that all together, my background in sports, years of coaching, and just trying to put it together to help it all make sense for people. The things that are traditionally seen as nonsense, I want to help make sense.
Okay. That it makes sense to me to just because of how much I've learned over the years. But at
Hmm.
one point in my life, it would not have made sense to me. So I
Yes.
totally understand where you get that as far as the
Hmm.
curator of nonsense. I
Yes.
there was actually a time in my life where I people kept telling me you need to give because if you give you'll receive more. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
And but now, I mean, I'm a single mom
Hmm.
and I give more now than I ever have before when I was married.
Hmm.
And I'm financially more stable now than I was before.
Yes.
And
It's a principle that works, but most people, you hear all kinds of talk, especially with people who don't have, right? You'll hear them talk about how it's stupid and doesn't make sense, and how can you get, like you said, all they can focus on is when it leaves their hand that is gone. And but that's a perfect example. And it's the same thing you talked about, meditating and even reading and spending time doing positive things for yourself. Most people don't value that. I don't have time for that. It's more valuable to sleep than to get up early and meditate before I go to work. It doesn't make it. What is that going to do? Things like that. So
yeah.
it's yeah, it's interesting how that works. Um, but yeah, I'm on a mission to help as many people as I can make sense of that nonsense.
You're going to be the next spa proctor.
Hey, I like that. I received that.
uh, so, as far as your performance psychology, that's pretty dang cool. Are you going to focus like in the sports arena or those types of athletes and whatnot, or just pull it all together with all the other knowledge that you have?
Yeah,
Look at all my
so
hand movements.
right, I see. Yes, that's all of it. I want to bring it all in. I my focus is going to be with helping people. For the most part, is going to be executives, or really, I'll just say anybody in business that wants to level up. That's really where my focus is going to be. Coaching them and doing the training that I do, even though the principles are the same. And I do some coaching. My kids are still competing, so I coach their teams and things like that. But most of the focus will be on the business side and personal development side of things. But the principles are the same, and it's fascinating to me, with my sports background, to get to this point and be able to put a name with what was going on back then, and to see how they cross over. It's the same thing. So uh, yeah, so the performance will be helping people perform whatever tasks that they want to perform, helping them achieve whatever goals they want to achieve.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so when you get your doctorate, are we going to call you Dr. Al?
I have not thought about that yet. Um,
The
it's
things
really
that are
not.
important.
Yes, yes, it is. It is. It probably will be Dr. Al. That's probably what it'll be.
Or Dr. A.
Dr. A. Yeah, something in that realm.
Oh, those are the things that go through my head. I'm like, well, what am I going to call him now? Dr. A, Dr. Al. See, now you're gonna think about it just because I asked
I
you.
am. I mean, you were forcing me to think about it now. I've really had my head down just doing the work right now and hadn't even thought about what my name would be after. But I will spend some
Oh,
time on that. And I'm gonna let you know once I decide.
okay. Oh, you better. You
You
totally. You better. Yeah.
can call me
I'm gonna,
this now, Kathy.
yeah, exactly. I will. And then we will go and ride a roller coaster just, to celebrate.
That's right. That's right. We'll do it. We'll do it.
Uh,
Do they have any good roller coasters up there where you are?
Not really. No.
Okay.
They have Lagoon here, and they have a couple of roller coasters, but they're by far not near like Six Flags or any
Right.
like those kind of roller coasters.
I
It's
got you.
just
I
yeah.
knew I wasn't aware of any, but I thought I'd ask a local.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, you're welcome to come up here, just we won't be riding roller coasters.
Do something else. Go ski or something, right?
Yeah, I love to snowshoe and I love to hike.
Okay.
Yeah. I do know that you wrote a book or you were part of a book, right?
Both.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought there was two books, right?
Yes.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So I wrote a book called The Other Side of Faith, and it's about how to recognize and overcome fear. So it is a faith-based book, and it's really a book about awareness more so than a how-to. But I talk about the way fear shows up, the different ways fear shows up, and ultimately how to be able to recognize it and then overcome it. Um,
Okay.
I was most recently a part of another project, and it was essentially dealing with it's called a collective breath, and it's just talking about some of the disparities among African Americans in this country. And so it talks a little bit about my personal experience and then solutions on what I think are ways we could overcome it and be better as a nation. And so I was a part of that project. Actually, that was just earlier this summer. So that book recently came out last month.
Okay.
And then I have
So,
some other projects in the works as well.
oh, nice. I don't remember if we talked about this on the last podcast, but the reason, actually, this is the reason that I got into Les's course was because I am an advocate for fighting for my Black human brothers and sisters because I do know of the disparity that is here in America. And so I'm actively advocating for, initially it was my Black sisters, just because they had asked me to,
Uh-huh.
and they needed somebody in the majority to help fight for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's awesome that you wrote that book. I absolutely 100% support you guys. And if you need anything from me, I'm here for you.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yes. Well, you are very welcome. You are very welcome. All right, I'm going to ask you the most important question of the day.
Okay.
If you could go back to tell your 18-year-old self anything, what would it be and why?
I would tell myself to pursue my dreams. I had a serious battle, at least in my mind, it was serious, with doing things the way I was supposed to do them versus following the dreams that I had in my heart. And so that is the thing that I would tell myself. I was afraid that I've always been a storyteller at heart. Okay. And so I wanted to do some things along that line. And my parents were completely against it. And they were like, you have the scholarship money. I had a track scholarship at the time. And, the traditional way was to go to school and get that education, right? And they were all about that. And I was pretty much told if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have their support. Well, talk about that fear thing. I was scared to step out there. Like, in college, I don't know how I could go to school and, or be out there on my own and do the things that I want to do without any support. And so I ended up, taking the money and doing the traditional route. So the thing I would do different is tell myself, go for your dreams, because in the end, you keep working hard, you keep doing what you got to do, like it will work out. You don't have to know the hows at the beginning. Most of the time, you won't know them, but you keep taking it day by day, one step at a time, and God will provide. The things that you need, you will get. And if you see the something else I just learned over the years, that every successful person that achieves, high levels in their respective fields did just that. They didn't do the traditional route. They spent time and energy doing that thing that they were passionate about. You see it with actors or athletes, um, even business owners. Most of them don't have, degrees and things like that. They just chase their dream.
Yeah.
They live, a life that most people wish they could. All the people that did the right things, right, things that they were told to do. And so that would be it. I hope that was not too long of an answer for that, but yeah,
No.
that's what I would tell myself. Just chase your dreams. Just go do it. Things that God put on your heart, go do it.
Yeah. It's hard when you're in that 18, 19-year-old mentality, because you don't necessarily, you think you can conquer the world, but at the same time, you don't think you can conquer the world.
Right.
Yeah.
I felt like I was invincible. I was at the height of my, strength and veracity, right, as a youth.
Yeah.
But then I also felt like, oh, I'm too young. I don't have enough money. I don't know how to do a bunch of stuff. So yeah, I was caught up in that dichotomy there.
Right. No, I was there as well, so I get it. I totally get it. And that's actually one of my daughter asked me a question, and her whole goal is to get her degree right now, which I'm proud of her for wanting to get her degree, because in her mind, that's what she thinks is, I got to get my degree so I can get a good job, so I can eventually retire. And and I mean,
Right.
and she will eventually get her degree and she'll get a job. But like you said,
Right.
it's not, if you want to be wealthy, that's not necessarily the route that you are going to be able to make the wealth.
Right. Yeah, and it's I'm working on my doctorate, right? So obviously I'm not against school, formal education. I think it can be an important way to achieve your goals. But the message I teach my kids is, let's figure out what you want to do. We're not going to spend $20,000 a year for you to discover yourself. Let's figure out what you want to do. If you want to go to school, let's figure out, what degree will help you get to your ultimate goal. And I think that's the biggest shift I believe needs to happen for people who do want to go to college. But it's absolutely not the only way. And as you mentioned, if you want to, be successful, ultra, the higher levels of success, maybe I should say, have the money, control and money freedom and things like that. It's not going to be working for somebody else, because as long as you're doing that, they're pulling the strings.
Right, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I've done the same thing. I've been in and out of corporate. And so I understand exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And one day my kids will see it as well. Maybe working for somebody else is their cup of tea.
Right. Yeah. Well, is you definitely have to be in the right mental space, right, to do that. It's not something that it's not for the faint of heart. I will say. I mean, you have to mentally make up in your mind. That's really the big thing. I shouldn't say it. I don't want to make it seem like it's super scary or something, but it really comes down to a decision. You have to know what you want to do. I love this analogy that I'm about to use here. If you're a fan of football, you definitely can relate. But when the ball is handed off to a running back and they know exactly where they're supposed to go, they get the ball and they hit the hole running full speed. It's difficult to tackle them. An arm tackle or a little bump won't knock them off. They're able to bust through the hole, and a lot of times they can reach their goal, right? Get the first down or score a touchdown. But if that running back is unsure and they get the ball and they're back there, tiptoeing and go to the left for a little bit and go to the right for a little bit, somebody can just bump them and they'll fall. And I think that that analogy is true for us in life. If you know what you want to do, you know where you're supposed to go, then you can hit the ground running. And setbacks and obstacles, they don't have near the effect on you as if you were a person who don't know where you're going and you get the first no and then you just turn around because you have no goal or destination, or you don't know what it is. And so I think that's the key piece there, is just knowing where you want to go, having a plan of where you want to go. Then you can run full speed.
No, I think that sounds fantastic. And I've actually wrote a whole book full of notes right now from
Oh,
our
okay.
interview. So I appreciate all of your tidbits of information.
Awesome.
It's
Thank you.
been awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would like to ask me or tell our viewers?
Well, I would say I know that right now it is a challenging time that we're living in. We mentioned watching the news, between the television and your iPad and whatever tablet you have and your phone. More than likely, you're getting inundated with messages that aren't necessarily filled with hope, that aren't necessarily messages filled with positivity. And so I just want to encourage you that regardless of the situation that we're in, you are still capable of doing what you need to do and doing what you want to do and achieving your goals. And so during this time, I would say don't focus on all the negativity that's out there, but take this time to go in, figure out who you are, where you want to be, things that you want to achieve, so that this time can be used as a slingshot, so to speak. It's a downtime. Maybe it's a time where you have to take a few steps back, but let that slingshot you forward into the things that you want to do. And so I guess that would be my words of encouragement that I like to share.
Those were fantastic words of encouragement, because that's exactly how I feel as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my heart is right now. And I've done those things and I feel so much better as a person because of it.
It really is life changing. You cannot put a value on those things, and it's I don't know. It's hard to get people to understand that until they actually do it.
Right.
Again, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Right.
But it really is valuable. It's important. It's something that your personal development, your mindset, your attitude. We have control over those things, and so as a person, as an individual, you have to take control over that. Don't let outside circumstances dictate that. You decide that you're going to be happy and that you're going to be thankful for what you do have, and be excited about where you're trying to go. Versus dejected and down and stressed out, which is what'll happen if you don't make up your mind to go look for it yourself.
Right, absolutely. I actually have something on my board it says you control you, which
Yes.
absolutely is 100% true. I've had to learn that because I used to think other people controlled me or controlled my attitude or my happiness, but it's not true.
Napoleon Hill said the only thing that you have absolute control over is yourself, your attitude. No matter what situation you're in, no matter how people try to control you, you still have control over your attitude. You have control over yourself and how you decide to view things. And so it is absolutely true. Otherwise, you're a victim. You'll be a victim your whole life. Yeah. If you don't have control and somebody else does, how do you change? You can't. You're stuck.
Yeah. I'm learning, and I'm not learning. I'm succeeding in getting my mindset and myself and my generational, I guess, because a lot of stuff is inherited.
Yes.
And I'm working on getting myself better so I can teach my kids better ways to think, and then I'm going to break that generational curse.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, that's a big part, is the knowledge, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Once you get the knowledge, you can make different decisions and change the whole trajectory, not only of your life, but maybe even more importantly, your family's life, right? Your kids' life, and everybody else to come after you.
Right. So that's my goal.
Yes, ma'am. I have no doubt that you will get there.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Well, we've come to the end of our time. So
Right.
I appreciate you spending the last hour with me.
Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. It's been a joy to get to know you a little bit more. And I look forward to our friendship growing. Thank you so much, Al. Yep. Have a great night.
All right. You do the same.
Okay,
Until next
thanks.
time.
All right. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.